All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to the Backroad, In Between Media's Fantasy NASCAR YouTube series. Today on the show, Seth Woolcock filling in for our normal host, Elliot Hicks. We also have the veteran, the media mogul here, Rod Villagmomez. What's up, Rod?
Media mogul. I like the way that sounds, and yet it's a weighty title. I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm excited to be back, and I love what we've been seeing so far, and I can't wait to dig into Kansas.
Absolutely, man. The NASCAR season is moving fast. We talked a little bit about it before the show. And also on tonight, we have the man, the gas man himself, Full Tank Phil, host of the Full Tank Phil podcast. What is up, Phil?
Seth, I'm happy to be here with you and Rod. This is going to be really fun. I love just connecting with more people like yourselves who are getting into this space. The rising tide floats all boats situation. I think we're going to have a lot of fun tonight talking Kansas cookie cutter track, but I think sometimes that can be better for people who are gambling on the sport. So yeah. I'm pumped.
Absolutely, man. Well, it's a privilege to have you here on the show, Phil. I hope your tank is full for tonight because we are absolutely loaded. We're going to break down the fantasy, the betting landscape, discuss what we've seen the last couple of weeks here in the fantasy NASCAR realm. And we also are going to talk about Kansas. We're heading to that cookie cutter track, Clint Boyer's territory out there in Kansas. And we're also going to preview the All-Star race a little bit too. It's once again, that gimmicky kind of race, but there is some fun to be had there as well. Guys, let's go ahead and get started, though, tonight, looking in the rear view. All right, folks, since the last time we talked, Chase Elliott, he made it happen at Dover, guys. He got that first W of the season. Kind of a weird race overall, though. Ricky Stenhouse, he finished in second. Just kind of a really weird one as far as betting goes, as far as fantasy terms goes. Rod, what was your overall takeaways from Dover, man?
Well, first of all, it was a Monday day race, right? We had to switch it over to Monday, which again, we talked about it on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. It's sort of, Cody brought it up that Monday sort of mellows folks out, right? I mean, it just sort of makes people not necessarily as up on the wheel as they are on a Sunday for whatever reason. So we sort of saw that kind of race play out. And the way Elliott won anyways was just it was a crazy end to a crazy day. And yeah, it was a frustrating race all the way around. I know I had a lot of Truex in that race because of his past and his history, and he just didn't have the car. So, and then at the end he spun anyway. So yeah, it's kind of like, so I don't know. You waited all day Monday or all day Sunday for a Monday race, and you kind of got Dovered. But what I did love about it is that we didn't see one person run away with this race. This wasn't a race where somebody led 200 laps and you pretty much just clocked out and everybody else was a lap down. There was competition all up and down. And like we talked about offline with Phil, we were cheering for cars that were back in the mid pack because they were in a head-to-head matchup. So there was a lot of action, and I think this was a better Dover than we've seen in a while.
Yeah, I agree. This was tough to watch as far as like physically watching it, because being Sunday, like I had it on my one screen while I was like in meetings, you know what I mean? I'm sure a lot of people were doing the same thing. So I didn't get to hear a lot about what the announcer was saying, but I'm following my bets, and it was a frustrating race to watch all the way through when you've got, guys that you're cheering for. I had the whole Hendrick crew in one bet. I did have Chase as an outright, but he really didn't emerge until the very end, and all the other Hendrick guys kind of showed their speed and then backed away. It was like you said, Rod, like it was good from a competition standpoint. And in the end, I was happy with the way it played out, but it was a weird one. Like I felt uneasy. I kind of felt like it was like nails on chalkboard, almost a little bit like, just like, until that restart where Chase finally got ahead of him and took the lead. I like seeing people like Ricky Stenhouse and someone like Chris Buescher. There was a couple other guys who were up there. That to me shows that, we're in the right spot right now with the sports. And it gives gamblers and fantasy players like, hope that they can hit some longer shots in certain places. So overall, came out happy with it. It was just, like you said, a weird one to watch.
Yeah, super weird one, guys. Chris Buescher, he led a lot of laps at the beginning of that. Daniel Suarez got in the mix once again, too. And Ross Chastain, I thought he could maybe pull it out. Could not. And then we go to Darlington here. Throwback weekend. NASCAR does a great job promoting this. From the ads everywhere on YouTube and just on cable, and just like the overall feel good fun that comes with this weekend. I mean, you see fans dressing up. I'm pretty sure like every Goodwill on the East Coast was probably sold out of throwback NASCAR gear. So super cool for them to do that. But this ended with the bump heard around the world. Joey Logano comes in flying on the last lap, takes out Willie B. And this was another really frustrating one, at least for me, from a fantasy point of view. Kyle Busch was fast at the beginning. He gets taken out. Ross ends up spinning out after another race I thought he was going to have in the bag there. And then Kyle Larson, man. I mean, how many people had Kyle Larson and just, a little bit of trouble there, and he's done for the day. Phil, what was your biggest takeaway from Darlington here?
So yeah, I thought it was another entertaining race. I had 3 guys that I called out for outrights. One of them was Kyle Busch, showed speed, was up front. And obviously you talked about what happened with him. I had Ross Chastain, showed speed, was up front, got wrecked. And then I had Willie B at the end. So I'm someone who like has the ability to be like super down on this race just because of the bias and how it played out. But I thought it was great. Like I bet on the race and I do the fantasy because I want to make the race fun for myself to watch. I got that. The bump at the end, I don't really have a problem with it. I know that there's a lot of people who are, fighting on Twitter about that. I don't think that Logano's justification or his explanation really made much sense. But at the same time, like that's why I watch NASCAR. Just because my guy was the one that got wrecked, I'm not going to say the race was brutal. I thought it was an entertaining race. I had fun with it, and like you said, the throwback stuff just puts a cherry on top.
Look, he got to run, right? I mean, that's really all it boils down to in the end. And he got to run. And when there's that few laps to go, you got to do something. I mean, you know that you're not going to be able to make the pass clean because you've tried and you've failed. So you got to do something. You got to get creative. And that bump, it's racing. I mean, that's what the old guys will tell you. That's what the throwback guys will tell you. That's exactly how you win. Little tap, little get around him, and that's how it works. But this race overall was just great because you had 6 different guys lead at least 20 laps in this race, right? I mean, there was parity. There was all kinds of stuff. Now, look, I'm bitter because Hamlin, for the first time in forever, had an opportunity and looked good. But, I mean, pit strategies at the end were nuts as it was. Right. And then he gets caught up because he's in the mix when those pit strategies didn't go his way. And he got taken out, collected by his own teammate, for God's sake. But that again, it made it to where I was cheering for Denny Hamlin when we're on a full fade of Hamlin right now. And I got chastised for that. But he looked good and he looked like he could win. So what this race gave you was the opportunity to cheer for at least 6 different guys for 20 laps and a lot of fun, and fantasy players too. At the same time, you can gnash your teeth if you miss out on the win, but I mean, were you entertained is the question.
I'll say real quick, Seth, I don't mean to cut you off. I'll just say, like, put a pin in this for the playoffs because that's 2 races now to my count. Last year's playoff race was just crazy. Like as far as the playoff drivers getting out of control and wrecking and the whole playoff implication stuff. And now this race, no playoff implications at all. Mm-hmm. Also pretty good. Like guys, like you said, 20 laps, bunch of guys leading 20 laps. That is interesting to me. So you better believe that when they go back there in the fall, it's going to be one to mark on your calendars. Like there was a point in time there where I was like, Darlington, I like the whole fanfare, the Southern 500, et cetera, but it wasn't doing it for me. Like around the time, like Eric Jones won, like that race, just like, I was like, this is kind of boring. This is on now. That's a appointment television from my standpoint.
Yeah, Darlington is really kind of surprised, I feel like, the last few seasons here, especially like the 2020 races stick out. Those were like the first ones coming back from COVID, and those really hit pretty well that year. And now we're just seeing it again and again. So Phil, I can't agree with you more, man. So fun to watch. so many different drivers be competitive. And that might just be a byproduct of this new car too, man. I mean, the next gen car has lived up to all the hype, in my opinion.
My favorite part is just the beating that those cars actually take. I mean, it takes a
Yeah.
lot to see them munched up like that. I mean, there were times where they were kissing the inside wall, and that would have taken out a quarter panel. I mean, that would have definitely munched that and into the tire, and you would have been cutting a tire. But these guys are kind of glancing off the wall in a way that they come back and they're good. I mean, they got to come back for 4 tires because they spun out to get there, but you know, it's not cutting a tire, it's not taking off a quarter panel, and these cars are still able to go unless they get completely taken out.
Yeah, I am so happy that it actually did live up to the hype. It's so hard to please NASCAR fans. I feel like they're so critical of their favorite sport. Like being in the Philadelphia area, I feel like that's how sports fans are around here. We're super mean to our own teams. I'm super mad at the Sixers as we speak, but like it's for a good reason. And now when something like this goes right, it's great. Like it's nice to have everyone kind of patting each other on the back. Like, yes, this is what we want to see. We want to see drivers who we haven't seen over the past few years, teams get a better chance. Like we're seeing with Trackhouse, we're seeing this across the board. It makes it so much more fun as a regular fan, as a fantasy player, as a gambler. Everybody's in kumbaya world right now. So I'm really enjoying it. The only critique I'll make, I'll just throw this out there before I'll probably switch topics here with you, Seth, but the tire changing situation, this one lug nut thing, I now I'm getting to the point, like the first part of the season, I was like, man, these guys had all year to figure this out, you know, but listening to Larry Mack every single time it happens, this is not something that I feel like they can just train on. Like there's almost a little bit of luck that goes into the wheel getting changed the right way. And I don't want that. Like, I don't like seeing Denny Hamlin's wheel going, you know, in front of him the other week.
Yeah.
That's one thing about this car that they have to take back to the shop and fix. How are they going to make this better? Because we can't lose good cars that are competing because of this, you know, one lug nut pit stop situation. It's starting to get on my nerves, but hey, like I said, I'll find negative things even in a good day.
That's a Philly fan for you there, Phil.
Sorry, when a tire beats you out of the pits, you know you got to go back to the drawing board.
I agree.
And guys, I think one of the biggest takeaways I have as a fantasy manager this season is in the past, normally by this time of year, you know who is going to be the 1 or 2 dominant cars. Last year was Kyle Larson. The year before, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick. For years, it was Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick. But this year, there are so many runs that, you know, we saw Chase Briscoe go on an amazing run about 2 months ago now. And now Chase Briscoe seems a little dead in his tracks. And, you know, now it's Willie B who's really starting to shine. Ross Chastain, they're showing consistency. But, you know, it wasn't too long ago, Rod, that you and I were sitting up here talking about, is Tyler Reddick the best driver in NASCAR? So many ebbs and flows with this season have been so interesting and has just made it a better overall fantasy experience and gambling experience as well.
I agree 100%. And really, to be honest with you, we were talking about cars in the 40s, right? We're talking about cars in the 40s now, all of a sudden, without Bowman notwithstanding. But yeah, you know, Eric Jones and Dillon's, and I just like names that you don't normally talk about. You're talking about him. You know, you talk about even JJ Yaley had a top 15 or what was it? Top finish or whatever. But you know, these guys we're talking about them.
Yeah. Sorry, Seth. It's a twofold situation. Like the brand of NASCAR is only going to grow with this sort of thing, because you look at people who are just simply in it because their favorite driver is someone random, like they're fans of the 43 car. Well, now the 43 car is relevant again. And then you got fantasy players that are sort of attracted to those like lower tier guys who they have a reason to cheer for them again. So they want to watch the race, and it's just like everybody coming together. It's good stuff.
Yeah, 100%, guys. Let's go ahead and let's talk about all the drivers here in our next segment, Tire Tiers. All right, Tire Tiers is our way of ranking NASCAR's top 30 drivers in different tiers for fantasy. Want to bring up this comment here from Matthew Parvin too. Ross Chastain and Willie B have been crazy consistent wouldn't have said that at the beginning of the season. And that's true, man. I mean, Ross has always been a wheelman, but he's never been consistent. And same with Willie B. I mean, right now, he's one lap away from at least having 3 wins, and not too far away from having 4 wins as well. So, guys, let's go ahead and bring in our tiers here. Starting with tier 1, it is a shakeup at the top since the last time we did this. We have William Byron at the 101 spot, Ross Chastain holding down the 102, Chase Elliott, everyone's favorite consistent driver, at the 103, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Larson, and Kyle Busch to round out tier 1 here. Phil, what was your takeaway here from the top tier of drivers? Also kind of alluding back to what Matthew Parvin said about Ross and Willie B as well.
I mean, I am someone who just 2 weeks ago was so hard on Ross Chastain, like just critical. Like, I don't know why everyone's getting, so happy about this guy. Why are we throwing outrights on him, et cetera, et cetera. And now I've completely had to eat crow, and I'm, either, can't beat him, join him. I am last 2 weeks now all in on the Ross Chastain
Yes,
train.
sir.
And I've got him outright again this week. I mean, plus 1,000. You kidding me? So absolutely deserves to be in tier 1. I think he's 7 of 10 top 5s. Like, he's either top 5 or bust. You can't hate that. That is consistent, just like the comment said. So, and Willie B, I think he deserves to be in that spot where he is right there on the graphic, because if you don't have a championship bet on the 24 yet, you better get it quickly, because as soon as he wins another race and then another, that value is not going to be worth it anymore. Kind of like Larson was last year around 4th of July. So I do not hate those two being in those 2 spots.
Yep. I have Chastain. In fact, I had him 1. Again, 7 top 5s. You said it, Phil. It just, you cannot dispute the fact that Chastain is absolutely taking over right now, and not just from a finish standpoint, but he's driving strong, and he's not afraid to put the bumper to you. He's literally not afraid to do what it takes to get the track position that he needs to be up front. And that goes down to the pit. I mean, you can see just every part of that team right now feels it, and we know, we've watched enough racing to know that when a team feels it, that's it. Like, the momentum is there and they're good. I mean, their driver's happy. The cars get set up better. The pit performs better. It just all around is a better situation. So, I mean, I had Chastain, the 1 car in the 1 spot, because you just can't get better than him right now. And I don't know that we can see him slowing down at all. I mean, the only difference that I had was Larson being, and I struggled putting Larson in the top tier, to be honest with you. I put him last in that top tier, but I very easily could have put him down somewhere in the 2nd tier, because, as much as we love to praise Larson, I think we're praising the memory of Larson more than what he's done so far this season. Yeah, he's got a win. Yeah, he's looked a little bit strong, but at this point last season, he started to turn it up. And so far, I don't think he's really turned it up as much as we expected him to.
Yeah, right. I mean, right now, you look at who's been the most consistent too. I think Chase Elliott has an argument for the 101, guys. I mean, he has the most top 10s right now with 9, and he's the best finish, the only guy under a 10 average finish position. So I don't know. I think Chase Elliott could be in that mix as well a little bit. But Willie B, he kind of does he win the argument for you, Phil, because he has led the most laps at 544, almost has that 3rd win as well?
Yeah, that's what does it. Chase, I agree. I actually have Chase above Ross, because I think there's something to be said. Up until Dover, still leading the points by a significant amount without a win, to me, that's a big deal. We talk about, like, it's like Hamlin last year. You know what I mean? That is a team that is able to be consistent. They're not relying on a wonky win or anything like that. So I actually still have Chase above the 1, but I have the 24 above the 9, because I think that, like, they are a threat to win every week, even when they're off. Like Dover, I think they started in the back, they fought to the front, they were still fighting all day. There was never a moment in the race until maybe like 20 laps to go where I thought that they were out of it. And with the 9, you kind of get the feeling early on. So that's, but it's like, 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. Honestly, they're both, if you're a Hendrick fan, you're happy.
100%, guys. Let's go ahead and move to tier 2 here. We have Joey Logano starting it out after that W. Alex Bowman, who, kind of had a bad day here overall at Darlington. Martin Truex Jr. just can't seem to put it together yet. Kevin Harvick roaring back, Rod's guy. And then Tyler Reddick has fallen down here the last couple weeks. And then Denny Hamlin finally reclaims that tier 2 spot. Rod, what was your biggest takeaway from this tier 2? It seems like a mixed bag here.
Well, I think you nailed it right there. Kevin Harvick actually making a rise in this tier, because we've seen him. I mean, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago too, where Kevin Harvick just sort of disappeared, and this car may have confounded him and may have given him fits and taken a long time to actually settle down and get comfortable in it. But now I think he's starting to get comfortable. My buddy Cody seems to think that Kevin Harvick's winning days are behind him. I tend to think that there's at least one more in there. And we've gone to several tracks over the last couple of weeks that have Harvick's name written all over him. Notwithstanding too. So I feel like that 4 car's got to crack through. But I feel like this second tier is probably where he's going to stay for about the rest of the season. He won't go up. He may go down, but I guarantee you that second tier is probably where we'll see Kevin Harvick once he figures out the rest of this car.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. He might slide over, further in tier 2. But this is his ceiling, I would say. I'm a huge fan of Harvick as well. And I think that the point that is valid with Harvick is everybody's talking about the new car. And the past history at different racetracks really don't mean as much because of the new car. That's true in a lot of cases. With Kevin Harvick, you look at Phoenix and you look at Darlington, right? You see that he has multiple 12 plus top 10 finishes in a row at those racetracks, and he comes through and he does it again. Looking at last week, starting in the back, not qualifying, wherever it happened with qualifying, and then working his way to the front, he was there. It was like, is the sun going to rise in the east? And I'm happy because you can rely on, like this weekend, we're seeing he's got a lot of top 10s, 8 of his last 10. I'm happy taking Harvick in that situation. So I hope that he gets a win. I have Stuart Haas over for the year, 2.5. I already got one of them. I would love to see Harvick rip off a couple and move down this tier, but I agree with your point, Rod. I don't think he's going to make it up to the top.
Yeah, 3 straight top 10s for Harvick here. He's on a hot streak. Kansas is one of his better tracks as well. So keep an eye on him heading into the weekend. The one driver I want to focus on here that's actually trending down a little bit is Martin Truex Jr., guys. It has been, he's looked fast at times. He's led laps, but he just can't put it all together here. And I think from a fantasy standpoint, he's been really disappointing because if you played him in DFS, he's just burned you. Right now, he only has a 0.8 differential from where he's starting to where he's finishing. So he's not getting any of those diff points. And overall, man, it's really sad to see what's kind of happened to Truex here. You can call it bad luck. You can call it, unfortunate timing as it has been at times. But I mean, at some point you kind of have to strap the big boy pants on and get it done. And he hasn't done that, guys. Any concern for Truex or any of these other guys in tier 2, Phil?
Well, Truex, the reason I'm concerned about Truex is coming into this season, he had made comments in the off season about this new car and not quite being sure about it. And if he doesn't catch on, like he's got no problem retiring because he's comfortable with money, blah, 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 blah. That makes me nervous because I don't want to lose somebody like Martin Truex Jr. And I am nervous about him. I've been suckered into taking him outrights the last, few races. I had to pause myself, maybe the last 2, but before that, it was like 3, 4 in a row.
Hammer down, baby.
Yeah, I kept doubling down. And it seems to be the wrong case. I'm not going to go with him this weekend. And I will be fine if Martin Truex Jr. goes out and gets a win and I'm not on that outright because I just want to see that first. I need to see the results before I go in on him. If things continue, I could see him slipping down. You know what I mean? And that would be bad because I don't want to see him go out to pasture.
Yeah.
So for me, the 19, just like you, Phil, I had a lot of outrights on him. I've in fact, the last couple of weeks have been like every Martin Truex bet, a prop bet, or even outright I can get. I'm like, yes, please, let's do this. Because his name, just like Harvick, is cemented on a lot of these tracks, multiple wins, multiple top 5, multiple top 10s. But the problem is, Seth, you talked about bad luck. A lot of times drivers create their own luck and finding themselves in situations where they get caught up in the mix. And I think that's exactly what's happening to Truex now, where he's good for some of the race, maybe then a pit call or some sort of something, and he slides up the track and starts to create his own bad luck. And that's what we've seen over the last few weeks, especially on tracks that he's good on. So, for the 19, yeah, Phil, I'd hate to see him go, because I do like me some Martin Truex Jr. as well. A hell of a racer that belongs on the track. But I wonder if some of these veteran guys, like Harvick, like Truex, kind of like even Keselowski, right? He's got his probably foot out the door now that he's an owner as well. Just maybe walk out and say, okay, I've done all I can. Now on to the next part of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been an up and down season, and we even saw Truex kind of get into it with Ross Chastain a couple weeks ago, fighting for the third position out of all things as well. So tier 2, definitely a mixed bags there, but high upside is what tier 2 can contain there for you guys. Here in tier 3, though, we have Chris Bell, Austin Dillon, Eric Almirola, Daniel Suarez, Chase Briscoe, who's really dropped the last couple weeks, and then Kurt Busch, for some reason, is still in our tier 3 boys. I'm just gonna I think this tier is a hot mess, honestly. I think the top half super consistent lately. I think we're a little too hot on Chris Bell, boys. I think we're a prisoner of the moment there. And what the hell is Kurt Busch doing in tier 3 here? Phil, can you help me out, brother?
Well, I had Kurt. Yeah, I might have skewed this up a little bit, but Kurt is someone that I just trust, because he's someone who has so much experience, maybe the most experience in NASCAR of jumping to different teams. And so you look at what he did with Furniture Row back in the day, like he brought that team to life. So that's where my mind is when I'm looking at him, like everyone's down on the team. Well, I know that Kurt Busch in his history has been able to put that team on his back and, rise through the ashes. I'm just waiting for that to happen. He's shown signs, like last week. He was there last week, guys. Like he had that problem early on, then fought back and then gets wrecked. Like pit road problem. That was brutal to watch. I thought it was Bubba, because he was riding the Mickey D's scheme. And I was like, good, get him out of the way. And then I realized it was Kurt, because I had something on Kurt. I had a top 10. And then he's fighting back. So that's the type. That's why I feel like he's in our tier 3 here, is because he's got that history, that potential, that veteran love, and he's just not getting the luck. So you get a little bit of luck, meets talent. I think we'll start to see things turn around a little bit, but I could see why someone would have him in tier 4, honestly, with the performance so far.
9 laps led, man. That's the thing. Like, he's just not someone who can get you stage points. And at this point in tier 3, like Eric Almirola is probably not going to get you stage points, and maybe Austin Dillon won't. But Daniel Suarez has been out there. Chase Briscoe has been out there getting stage points pretty consistently here. Rod, any thoughts on tier 3 here? I think Chris Bell's still a little high personally as well.
You love your little high on Chris Bell. He's 10th in points right now. 2 top 5s. Like he's 10th in points.
Yeah.
As bad as we probably think that he's run, only because we don't see him up at the front in the top 3, 4, 5 every week consistently. You got to kind of pay attention to the rest of the field. And I know you do, Seth. I'm not.
Oh yeah.
Pay attention, Seth. No.
Even looking at laps led, he has 121. That's actually more than I thought he would have at this point in the season. So maybe he's just been one of those guys who's kind of been sneaky good, and he's always kind of in DFS lineups. He's kind of just, mid-tier price, mid-tier on the starting grid. So he's never someone super attractive to go after, I guess.
But that's a testament to the racing, though, this year. I mean, again, we talk about when everybody's eyes are up front, because there's always action happening up front. And yeah, Christopher Bell may not be in the mix in front, but I mean, our eyes are there, but there's still action happening in the back. And so we don't have 360-degree vision. We can't have the cameras on every car all the time, although they try.
Yeah.
The 20 car is just one of those cars that hasn't run a sexy enough race to garner the attention.
That's it.
Is there.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in Christopher Bell, because coming into this season, you look around and you realize that this is a driver who has not had an opportunity to have practice and qualifying in their Cup career. So you're like, wow, this dude knows what he's doing. Imagine what happens. He's in Gibbs equipment and he gets a chance to get out there and practice and qualify. Like, this dude's going to be on fire. And that's not what we've seen. Felt the same way about Tyler Reddick from his rookie year, same deal. So those are two guys that I'm a little disappointed in, and I think they're in the right spots on the tier because Reddick is outperforming his equipment and Christopher Bell in the 20 car is not. So I'm let down by him. Same thing around Truex. Like, I want to see something to make me want to, take something on him before I just go randomly do it.
Yeah, absolutely, Phil. We do have a comment here from Derek Yoder on YouTube. With road courses coming up, Briscoe makes the jump to tier 2. Interesting point. Briscoe is a great road course racer there, Derek. And then Kurt Busch jumps to being the best of tier 3. Dylan is sneaky good on this list, but his ceiling is low tier 2. 100% agree. Austin Dillon has been super consistent the last, 5 weeks. I think he's had one bad finish. But yeah, I mean, he's just not going to get you those stage points at the end of the day, and probably not going to get you that win too. But I love the points there from Derek. Guys, let's go ahead and move on to tier 4 here, though. Eric Jones has brought Richard Petty Motorsports out of the grave this season. Hats off to him. I didn't buy into it early in the season. Rod, you know that. And then we have Chris Buescher and Austin Cindric, and then Brad Keselowski, a lot of RFK guys in this tier, and then Bubba Wallace and Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who's finally had somewhat of a breakout over the last 2 weeks. Rod, what's been your biggest takeaway from this tier 4 here, other than your mad love for Eric Jones, brother?
I got to tell you, that 43 car, anytime it does good, it's good for the sport. So yeah, I mean, I love watching Eric Jones, and I'll pick him. I'll pick him for a lot of things. In fact, I'm probably going to end up picking him for this race in a head-to-head somewhere because he's just been running well. He's another one of those guys where the cameras aren't always on him, so you can't always see that he's doing well. But when you look at the leaderboard, you're always finding him somewhere in that top 15, hanging tight. Bad luck maybe catches him in a couple of races here and there, or he's looking at a better finish. But yeah, I mean, I love the 43. I'm a little disappointed with the 2. This is where I thought, again, going into this season, obviously as a rookie, you win Daytona. It's all great from there. I didn't expect him to come out and win 5-6 more races, but I did expect that momentum to kind of carry him through a little more of the season. But poor Cindric has really gotten caught up in a lot of bad messes. A lot of them he's made himself, with the starting positions not being what there are, and starting from the back and having to, do a few things here and there. But I'm kind of disappointed with that too. The 6 and the 23. I mean, the 23, I take it Phil doesn't like the 23 very much. But I'm just saying I had 23-11 winning a couple more races than they've won so far this season. So I'm surprised to see them struggling as much as they have.
Yeah, I'll comment on the 23 real quick. Not that I don't like the 23, just last week. I'm a week by week, depending on who I have. And I was betting against him last week. So that's why I was rooting against him. All of these guys, I want to see do well because of different reasons. And I'm thrilled that I'm seeing the 43 do well because Eric Jones is somebody who I just feel for. Like, got booted from the 20 car, much better equipment. You see this guy in the 43 that, Almirola and Bubba held it together, held it so that, Richard Petty was able to still have a team, but
Right.
like, is that really the bar? So he is in playoff contention right now. He's 16th in points. He would make the playoffs if it started today. That's unbelievable compared to where this car was just a year ago. So the new car clearly leveling things out because that proves to me Eric Jones has talent, and I love to see something like that go down. I'm a big Chris Buescher fan. I think that he is coming along in his career. He's outperforming his veteran teammate and owner, Brad Keselowski. Yeah. I have both the 43 and the 17 up a tier, and 2 of those guys in tier 3 down just because of what we've been seeing lately, like recency bias, because I think this is a living, breathing thing. And I think some of those tier 3 guys aren't doing that well right now enough to deserve it. So 43, 17, they're in the right spot in tier 4 on the one side of the screen. 47's coming alive. But, up until Dover, he's been a wreck, almost to the point where it's like, what's going on? I heard an interview with him with Claire B. Lang talking about how he's happy that he's a single car shop now and he doesn't have a teammate. I'm thinking to myself, what kind of a guy are you? Like, who wouldn't want to share notes in NASCAR these days? So it kind of just proved like, okay, maybe he did need some help. But I like what I'm seeing out of the last couple weeks. So I got my eye on Ricky for sure coming up through cookie cutter country, because I think that's where he's going to be able to he's got to hang on tight, I guess, is what you want to say.
Are you guys as out on Brad Keselowski as I remain right now? One top 10 for him this season. I mean, and he's just involved in so many accidents. I mean, he's become a meme of fantasy NASCAR this season. Like, you don't want your drivers near him. And Kyle Busch fans, our buddy Jared and Dalton Good, they definitely learned this weekend what Brad Keselowski can do if you get in his way. Rod, what's been the takeaway here, man? Is this just a fluke, a bad start to an ownership circle, or is this just what we now need to expect from Brad K?
I had him last week as a long shot because he was plus 6,000, I think, last week to win. Yeah. Well, maybe it was Dover. One of the tracks I had him at a plus 6,000 to win because he actually had won on the track. And I thought, okay, well, if anybody can try to turn something around, it's Brad Keselowski. Well, unfortunately, he got collected and didn't do very well. But it's, again, we talked about creating bad luck. He's creating his own bad luck. And maybe it is because now he's an owner. Maybe he's got a split attention span all over the place. He's got more on his plate than he had before. All he had to do before was get in the car and drive and worry about that. Now he's got to worry about this and owning a car and owning the car that he's in. And I got to take care of it. I only got so much. So I don't know. Maybe we're starting to see again where Keselowski has got his foot out the door, but now both feet are starting to follow because he can't keep track of what's going on. And look, that's not to say that he still can't drive, but listen, I know as someone who has 16 million plates on the spinning around that at some point, one of those plates is going to slow down and you're not going to realize it until it's too late. So that could be the same for Keselowski.
Yeah. I think he's spread too thin. And it's a shame because I mentioned how everybody in this tier, I have a reason why I want to see them succeed. I think that we need to put a lot of praise behind someone who cares about the sport so much to get into an ownership situation and want to drive at the same time. You see it with Denny, you saw it with Tony Stewart. Like those guys should be praised for reinvesting their money in the sport. That is awesome. I think that he's spread too thin. I'd be shocked if he left, Rod, like you're saying, kind of 2 feet out the door, 1 foot out the door. Because I think the goal, right, if this is an investment, I think the goal here, knowing the new car was coming, was to get into that 6 car and make it attractive enough to where you could snag some top talent coming up, or maybe a free agent along the way, like a Tyler Reddick situation, who's proven himself to be a big deal. And he's not doing that yet. So I cannot see him wanting to leave until that 6 car becomes a destination spot or better than it is now, 30th in points. So I think he needs to, I think this season is not savable. And I think in the off season, they need to reset. Like you said, so many plates spinning. He's got a young family to boot. Like imagine starting up just like this huge company, driving, running that. It's just crazy. So he's going to need a full-time reset. And I would hope that I hate to pack it up. What are we, third of the way through the year, but I don't see it.
31st in points now because of the penalty, negative 10 playoff points. It's an uphill climb for Brad Keselowski, but one win does it for him. So we'll keep an eye out there on tier 4. Guys, let's round it out with tier 5, though. Justin Haley has been on an absolute burner. 3 straight top 12s. He's the top of tier 5 here. I'd argue he should be even higher. And then Ty Dillon, Mr. Consistency back there as well. He's been great for differential points in DFS this season. And then Michael McDowell, always consistent there in the bottom tier. And then, I mean, what more can you say about Cole Custer? He's 26 in the points once again. No top 10s this season. Rod, I remember you and Elliot and Jared, we were a little bit excited for Cole Custer for a minute. It turns out to be the same old Cole Custer. And then Harrison Burton and Corey LaJoie here, they rounded out. Shout out to Harrison Burton finally getting back in the tiers after I don't think he's been there since week 1 of the season. Rod, what was the takeaway here, man?
Well, yeah, Cole Custer. I think the love for him lasted about 5 minutes and then hit the track. And we're like, well, there's Cole Custer.
That one Xfinity race. Yeah.
One Xfinity race. No, look, I love your love for Haley. I really do. I don't know that he is a tier 4 driver yet. But he's going to get there. I have a feeling I don't know if it was us or if it was on the gambling podcast that we pegged Haley as somebody who could potentially be, a better driver in his rookie year. So yeah, good for him. This tier is one of those tiers for fantasy's sake. You kind of just plug in. If you got him, you got to plug him in because there's no actual, you hope for a better finish than you're probably going to get out of all of them. I do like that Burton's back. That 21 car is always good for the sport. Again, Wood Brothers brings a lot to the table, but Corey LaJoy, do you really want to get excited for Corey LaJoy on a weekly basis other than maybe betting, Phil?
No. Corey LaJoy is tough. I mean, he's got the personality and that's great. You know what I mean? But not getting it done. He's really tough to cheer for. He's somebody that like, you kind of wish you could do like simulation of real life to see if he was in a real car and he wasn't in a trash box, that he would be able to do something with it, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? But going back to Cole Custer, huge disappointment. I am so let down. I allowed myself to get sucked up into Cole, and I kind of said to myself, like, Dover, right? If he can pull this one off for me, it was plus 350 or 300 to finish in the top 10. He had great stats at Dover and comparable tracks as well. So I was like, yeah, this is my long shot. I really want, and I was tracking Cole as much as I could on that Monday. And he was just, give him credit for fighting back because he was like 28th average running position for a while. He ended up finishing 15th, but still just, you cannot say Cole Custer without following it up as non-factor. Every race, he's just not there. And so out of everyone on this list, like, he's the biggest disappointment. Haley, I think there's reason to be excited. Ty Dillon's my guy. Like,
yes, sir.
I bet on him 4 times a year outrights. It's the super speedways and now maybe Atlanta. He just brings it. And so with this tier, if you're gambling or fantasy, you just got to know like what tracks to play them on. You know what I mean? You don't have to just throw them in because they're fodder. There are tracks that you could take a shot on, like Custer finishing 15th at Dover, not too shabby, but he's not performing well enough in that equipment. He's going to be out of that ride if he doesn't pick it up. And that would be a shame because I think he's a good dude for the sport. But yeah, the others, Burton, I expected more out of him, especially the way they made that move. Like, if you remember back to last year when they made that move with Matty D, it was real shisty, you know what I mean? And you kind of said like, well, 21 car, they better be able to bring it next year if they're going to kick out Matty D and bring on this rookie. And it's not working out that way. So that has to be a little bit of a, rough looking back. So I there's reasons to be happy with some of these guys, and others, they deserve to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, that is our tire tiers here heading into the next segment of the Fantasy NASCAR schedule. Let's go ahead and break down the next 2 races a little more in depth with our horizon forecast.
Hey, Michael, it was only 20% chance of rain. I think we got all 20.
All right, horizon forecast. Guys, I get excited about Kansas. I don't know if I'm just a weird NASCAR fan, but I think Kansas has always been kind of a better track than people let on here. We're heading there. As Phil pointed out earlier in the show, we can't take everything that we've seen in the past couple of years seriously with the new car coming in. But Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott, if there's 2 favorites coming into it, it is them. They both have top 10 averages on this track throughout their career. Younger drivers have struggled here, though, guys. Outside Tyler Reddick and Willie B, there haven't been much success amongst these young drivers here. Do the veterans stay on top in Kansas, or is this another one where the young guys pound the pavement?
Yeah, I think we've started to see the veterans start to make a move toward the front. I mean, in the beginning, it was all about watching all of these young guys kind of jockey and oh, they've got a handle on this car because the old guys don't know what they don't know, or the young guys don't know what they don't know. And the older guys are starting to figure this out now, I think. And really, you're starting to see it, right? With Hamlin really coming to the life the last couple of weeks. Granted, yeah, the finishes weren't there, but the runs were there. Truex back up to the front, the Hendricks guys now, all the Gibbs guys. Like, now they're starting to get the hang of it. And I think now that we're going to get to these tracks, the first third of this season was just like this gigantic tornado that was just dirt track and short track and this new track and this new configuration of Atlanta. It was just like everything just new thrown at everybody. And it was just discombobulating for all the drivers, I think. And then the new car on top of it all. Now we go to Kansas. Kind of can catch your breath on this track. You know, we said it's a cookie cutter track. It's a mile and a half. The dimensions are the same. Everything's the same, right? The only thing that's different is the car, but now they've got a handle on this car. So I think when you look at the past winners like Larson, Busch, Logano, Hamlin, a couple of times, Keselowski, Elliott, you know, these guys are the guys that you're going to be looking at, especially to win this race, but also for good finishes, top threes, top fives in your head-to-heads. These are the guys that you're going to be looking at to place bets, to put in your fantasy rosters and make sure that if you're doing a redraft, which we've done in the past, these are the guys that you want on your team, because I have a feeling that from here on out, now that the madness is starting to die down, a lot of these guys are going to start to find their footing again, and you're going to watch them have better runs than maybe they've had in the last few weeks.
Yeah, catching your breath is a great way of putting it. I think there's first of all, I'm surprised. I'm licking my chops actually for this race because it has more predictability to it, but yet from a gambling standpoint, when DraftKings came out with the lines on Monday night, 4 guys plus 700 apiece. There have been times in the past where Kansas's favorite was like plus 300. Like, come on. You know what I mean? Plus 700 for 4 of them. That's the favorite. Like, give me all of it. I want to skim through. There's opportunity here for the gambler. So I'm excited. The other reason why I'm excited, as this season starts to get older, we're going to have more comparable tracks. So what I'm looking at is the history. I am not discounting the history at each track. I love doing it. It's like what I do Mondays, just like kind of going through track history, writing my, notes up. That's not going to change. But what is going to change is being able to look back at something this year. So then the unknown of this 2022 car starts to fall into place a little bit. And if you look, I saw one tweet out there by RotoDoc who said since 2016, the 2 tracks, as far as average running position is concerned, is Las Vegas and Dover. Well, we just were at Dover and Las Vegas early in the year. So if you're looking back at those 2 tracks, I'm looking at green flag speed, where they finished. We're looking at guys who have good history and have been good this year. Guys like Kyle Busch, guys like Alex Bowman. You're getting decent odds. Like Busch is one of the favorites, plus 700. Give me that all day. Like you're not giving up that much for him. And then you look at people like Bowman, Ross Chastain. Doesn't have the history here, but he was phenomenal at both of those tracks. If you really want to go all in on that comparison situation, how could you lay off him at plus 1,000? So I think for the fantasy player and the gambler, it's much more predictable, which you should feel good about. And opportunity is abound here. Like, you should be all over this.
Yeah. Kansas is going to be a fun one, guys. Hopefully the DFS slate, when that drops later this week, it will also be favorable, just like the odds are. What about the All-Star race coming up here in 2 weeks, guys? I know it doesn't get a lot of love anymore. It's now at Texas, which, I'm going to leave my opinion of Texas Motor Speedway to myself. But are you guys excited for this? Last 3 years, it's either been Kyle Larson or Chase Elliott. Last season, it was in the midst of Kyle Larson's just dominant streak. Are we going to see something different here? Or is this going to be the same old All-Star race?
I'll let you take that, Rod.
Oh, you'll let me take that. Of course you will, Phil. Look, okay. As far as gambling perspective goes, you should probably treat the All-Star race exactly like you treat a super speedway. Don't go too heavy on it. just do it for fun, to have stuff to kind of cheer for on that weekend. This is not a very fantasy and or gambling friendly weekend. And in fact, this could be the opportunity for your checkbook to take a breath, because
Yeah.
you just sit back and enjoy some good racing and cheer for whatever you got to cheer for without trying to throw any money on it. Because the All-Star race, these guys, it's a non-points race, and they're going to treat it as such, and they're just going to go out and have fun. And yeah, they all want to win because there's money at stake and there's prestige at stake, but there's not the same sort of pressure on them as there would be if this was a points race. So you should not by any stretch of the imagination bet your house on anything that happens in the All-Star race.
Yeah, I'm looking at this twofold, right? I think Texas is just a joke lately. And so the reason I'm looking at it twofold, like last season, and I think the year before, like my podcast is all about gambling on the races. I took that week off. I said, yeah, I'm not doing a podcast about that race because I just don't think it's worth it. I think you shouldn't bet on it. I'll probably do something small next week, but I only because of the new car. And I'm looking at it not so much to gamble on, like you said, Rod, like take a break a little bit, come up for air. I'm looking at it more so of data, for later. Because, we saw last year Larson tore it up and he was able to get it done at the end of the year. So what can we learn really as a fan and as a gambler in that race and seeing what's going? But I am not going all in. I honestly just wish they would blow this whole thing up. And it's already not a joke, but like he said, like they put in $1 million or whatever it is on it. Like that's what they have to do to get people to care about it. Just do something crazy. Like it's already not worth it. Come up with like the craziest idea you possibly can, and that make that your All-Star game.
How about racing in a Coliseum?
Yeah, right.
There you go. Right. Like, or a dirt race, like the Bristol stuff. Do something nuts, but it's not points paying. I think that would get my attention. Texas doesn't do it for me. So we'll see how it plays out. I hope it turns out better than the way I'm kind of making it seem, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, I mean, for NASCAR, we've given them so much credit all year long. We about how they're continuing to transform and innovate this sport. Yet they send us back to Texas once again for the All-Star race. It's always kind of been a little bit of a sleep fest of a track, and now when you put people who barely care about it on the track as well, it's tough. And it's on a Sunday night, so normally when you would at least get it on the Saturday night, you could be drinking a little bit, enjoying it with the boys, but it's a tough one to swallow here. My favorite thing is honestly the All-Star Open. I think that's always fun to try to see some of these guys get into it. So we'll see what happens there, guys. But All-Star Weekend, I think we all kind of feel the same. Save your units, save that payroll for another race here. And if you're going to dump it into one of them, why don't you dump it into Kansas coming up this week? And let's round out the show, guys, with your favorite prop bets on Parking Garage Props. All right, let's start with the gas man here. Phil, fill us up, man. What do you got for prop bets this week? Where are you throwing your money? Where should our listeners be throwing their money as well?
So the one that I really like, I actually just got done recording with a guest, Skybox NASCAR, great dude, came on it, and we were doing a head-to-head face-off. And there's one bet that I really like, and it's going to be, let's see, where did I just lost it here? My guy, Chris Buescher versus Bubba Wallace. So I'm kind of going out there again, looking like I'm hating on Bubba Wallace, but I think there's good reason for it this weekend because Bubba Wallace just does not have it. So you're kind of looking at it from two angles, just like we said before, right? The 2022 season with the new car and track history. Well, 2022 season, I think Buescher has him beat. I think Buescher has been more consistent. He's been more exciting at times, winning the pole, top tens. Bubba just can't seem to figure it out, right? We talked about that. Looking at Kansas, it's not even close. Like when you start to look at some of these back marker guys, we're talking about like top 15s and top 20s, right? Bubba Wallace in 8 starts has 1 top 15, 2 top 20s. That's not going to get it done like that.
Nope.
So when I'm looking at these driver props, these head-to-heads, I'm saying, all right, well, who do I want to bet against? That's somebody that I want to bet against. And then you look at who he's going up against in Chris Buescher. He's got 7 top 20s and 5 top 15s. Way more consistent at this racetrack. So I'm going with Buescher over Wallace as a definite play.
Phil, I love that, man. I mean, I will say I was full fade Bubba Wallace this week going into it. 26 average finish position for Bubba Wallace here at Kansas. So I'm licking my chops at that one. That is a great deal there. Rod, do you have any props yourself that you're looking at? Preferably non-hating Bubba Wallace, but we can continue that trend if you want.
Hey, look at poor Bubba. I actually had Bubba, like I said, 23-11 to win at least 2 races this year. Unfortunately, I don't know that that's going to happen, but I thought at least with him and Kurt Busch between the two of them, maybe even Kurt would throw both wins in there and 23-11 win, which is where my prop is. If you are looking for good props, folks, BetMGM has some fantastic props every week. It's just a crazy. I love their props, and I'm gonna go back to theirs. They've got great parlays. This one is Kyle Busch or Kurt Busch to win the race. This is at plus 600. This is a pretty decent, because for Kurt Busch to win alone, Phil just mentioned it, is plus 700. But now you get Kurt or Kyle. You can hedge a little bit. Kurt doesn't have the greatest finishing position here at Kansas. It's 15th overall, basically in his career, but he did have a 4th place the last time he was here. We talked a little bit, Phil, how he's just there. He's been there. 1 or 2 things swing differently. We're talking about a different race for Kurt Busch. So could this be the week where, he finds his legs and can actually pull up to the front and keep himself there? Who knows? But at plus 600, if I'm going to get 2 drivers, I think that's a good spread for me.
I can't agree with that more. First of all, calling out the MGM props, that's something that's been slipping through my radar here under my nose. Great call out there, because I'm looking at him now. Fantastic. I think Kyle Busch by himself could be plus 600. So if you're getting Kurt thrown into the mix, it's like a free egg rolls there for you. Like throw them into the bag and let's roll. I think that's fantastic. Great call out. 2 drivers for the price of 1. You can't beat that.
Well, guys, we have brought the heat today. Phil has filled up our gas tank. Rod, you brought the heat as always over there, man. Phil, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you and what you have going on the rest of the NASCAR season, man?
Yeah, no, the podcast called the Full Tank with Phil podcast. You can find it anywhere you listen to your podcast. And just trying to grow started on Instagram. That's really where I got going, but trying to get it more into the Twitter. So at Full Tank Phil on both of those. I love talking with people on there. So give me a look and put out an episode each week. I'm trying to connect with people like yourselves, have them come on to the podcast and just kind of grow the industry as much as possible. So give it a look. And if you have anything for me, please let me know. I love hearing from people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Phil. Rod, why don't you tell us, in addition to being here with us every other Tuesday, what you have going on here over at SGPN?
Well, yeah, my heart is here with you, Seth. I love doing the Backroad. I love talking NASCAR with you. But I also enjoy talking NASCAR with my buddy Cody Zeeb over on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. Find that on the SGPN app. And, of course, find everything that I do basically at SGPN. You can also find my weekly articles breaking down the best bets and some expert picks over on the Sportsbook Review website as well. Check that out every week. I'll definitely be breaking it down this week as well. So, yeah, have some fun.
Awesome. And guys, for everything we do here in Between Media, the easiest way to support us is hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We greatly appreciate it. Whether you're into fantasy football, fantasy NASCAR, fantasy golf, or just some feel-good lifestyle advice, baby, we got you covered over here at IBT. Head over to the website, www.inbetweenmedia.com. For Phil, for Rod, I'm Seth. Keep it real until next time, guys, and good luck this weekend at Kansas.